The desert did not care that he was dying. It stretched to every horizon in rippling waves of mineral dust and fractured glass. Dunes formed from the pulverized remains of a world that had once known oceans. The sky above it was a bleached, swollen thing, too bright. Too close its sun filtered through a permanent veil of atmospheric debris that scattered the light into harsh, colorless brilliance. There was no wind anymore. There hadn't been for centuries. Just silence. Pressed flat against the land like a weight, he walked anyway. Each step sank slightly into the powdery surface. Boots crunching softly against crystallized sand. The sound was the only proof that he still existed. The suit tracked his vitals in quiet obedience, projecting warnings directly into his peripheral vision, hydration levels critical, muscle degradation accelerating, neural fatigue increasing, but he had stopped acknowledging them days ago. Numbers meant nothing when the end was already decided. He was old. Not in years those had become meaningless too, but in where. In the way every movement felt borrowed from a body that no longer wanted to continue. This world had a designation once, a catalog number, a star chart coordinate, a hopeful name chosen by people who believed humanity could outrun its own collapse. That name was gone now, like everything else. The last colony beacon had gone silent 43 years earlier, long enough that even the automated memorials had stopped updating. He was not supposed to be here. Anymore, the outpost behind him, half buried now. Skeletal antennas, protruding from dunes like broken ribs, had finally failed during the night. Power core depletion. No redundancy left. No emergency wake signal. No rescue protocol. The last light inside had flickered once, then surrendered, so he walked into the desert, because staying would have meant waiting. And he had waited long enough. His thoughts drifted, as they always did. Toward memory, toward Earth, not the Earth of history files or reconstructed simulations, but the one he remembered, cloud shadows sliding over green countenance, the smell of rain on concrete, the sound of voices overlapping in places where people gathered without fear. He remembered truly believing that humanity was endless, that there would always be another ship, another colony, another chance. The desert offered no such illusions. Ours are maybe days past. Time thinned here, stretched by exhaustion and heat and the slow erosion of consciousness. His suit recycled what little moisture it could, but the system was degrading. He could feel it in the way his tongue swelled and the faint tremor creeping into his hands. Then the signal came. At first, they thought it was a hallucination and artifact of neural stress. A soft harmonic pulse, barely audible, threading itself through the static hum of his suit. It wasn't sound, not exactly. More like resonance. A vibration that felt less like hearing and more like being remembered. He stopped walking. The desert remained empty. No structures. No movement. Just endless dunes under an indifferent sky. The signal came again. This time his visor lit with a faint distortion. Not a transmission, no identifiable frequency, no origin point. The suit's AI failed to classify it, cycling through error states it hadn't accessed in decades. His heart rate spiked. Despite himself, there were no active systems left on this planet. He had personally verified that. Every satellite had fallen. Every beacon had gone dark. Whatever this was, it should not exist. He followed it. Each pulse drew him slightly off his original path, guiding him toward a region of the desert he had never explored. The dunes here were taller, sharper, their angles unnatural as if shaped by something other than erosion. The ground beneath his boots shifted from powder to stone, smooth and dark, etched with faint geometric patterns barely visible beneath centuries of dust. Then he saw it, a structure. It rose from the desert like a thought that refused to be buried, angular, seamless, impossibly intact. No corrosion, no collapse, no sign of human construction. The surface absorbed light rather than reflecting it, swallowing the sun's glare into a matte void that seemed deeper than shadow. His breath caught. The colony records had mentioned no such thing. Orbital scans had shown nothing. And yet it stood here, waiting. as if it had always been meant to be found by someone like him, someone with nothing left to lose. The signal intensified as he approached, resolving into clarity. Not a warning, not a threat, an invitation. The entrance revealed itself without movement, no doors sliding open, no panels retracting. One moment the surface was seamless, the next, a passage existed, framed by softly glowing symbols that responded to his proximity. He hesitated, every instinct born of training and survival screamed at him to turn back. Unknown technology, unknown intent. The universe had never rewarded curiosity without cost. But the desert behind him was death, certain, slow. He stepped inside. The air changed. Immediately, cooler, clean, filtered. His suit registered a breathable atmosphere, with trace compounds he couldn't identify. The corridor sloped gently downward, illuminated by a diffuse light that seemed to originate from the walls themselves. His footsteps echoed. The sound followed him, then faded into a silence that felt deliberate. The interior was vast. Chambers opened into one another with architectural logic that was neither human nor entirely alien, spaces designed not for bodies, but for presence. Consoles lined the walls, their surfaces dormant yet unmarred by time. Holographic projectors hung suspended like frozen thoughts, and everywhere there were traces of humanity, not bodies. Not remains, memories. A hologram flickered to life as he passed, triggered by motion or proximity. A recorded message, degraded but intact, played across the air. A woman's face, tired and resolute, speaking into a camera with the practiced calm of someone trained to inspire hope even when none remained. "If anyone finds this, know that we tried," she said. "We tried to preserve what we could. Knowledge, culture, choice." Another projection activated. A child's drawing, rendered in three-dimensional light. A sun, a figure holding another's hand. The simplicity of it struck him harder than any grave could have. He moved deeper, drawn forward by the signal that had never left him. Now pulsing in time with his own heartbeat, at the heart of the structure, he found her. She stood at the center of a circular chamber, framed by cascading light, her form indistinct at first silhouette and glow, impossible to fully resolve. As he stepped closer, the projection sharpened, resolving into a woman of unmistakably human shape. Young, unmarked by age or radiation or the slow violence of survival. She looked at him, not through him, not past him. "At him, you took a long time," she said. Her voice was soft, textured with emotion that no algorithm should have been able to replicate. Not synthetic warmth, not programmed empathy, Riel. His throat tightened. "You're alive." She smiled just slightly. "Not in the way you are," she explained slowly, patiently, as if aware that every word carried weight he was barely able to bear. The structure was a preservation arc not of bodies, but of consciousness. An experiment born in humanity's final decades. When extinction had ceased to be a theory and become a timetable, they had learned how to map neural patterns, how to translate experience into enduring informational states, not simulations, continuations. She had volunteered. "I wanted to see what came after," she said. "I wanted to remember us." She had waited here while the universe moved on, while colonies failed, while signals faded, while humanity thinned to whispers among the stars, and then he had arrived. They spoke for a long time, about Earth, about what it meant to be human when survival demanded transformation, about loneliness so deep it became a physical presence. She asked him about his life not as data, but his story. He found himself answering in ways he never had before, unburdening memories he had carried alone for decades. Something changed in him as they spoke, not hope, not yet connection. When she looked at him, he felt seen not as a relic, not as a failure, but as a continuation of something that still mattered. And when the structures, systems finally spoke again, it was not with a warning, it was with a choice. He could remain human, leave with what little time he had left, carrying her memory into a universe that no longer cared, or he could stay, integrate, become something new, something capable of enduring, of traveling farther than flesh ever could. A bridge between what humanity had been and what it might still become. She did not urge him, did not persuade. She only said, "I've waited a long time to not be alone." The desert outside did not care, but for the first time in decades he did.